The NBA has a massive problem on our hands, and they may be overthinking its solution. Let's see if we can fix it on this edition of The Nest. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another edition of The Nest RXP. It's your boy Robin here, back with another edition, and we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about. Zion news came out, the rebuilding news, 3-20. At the time of recording this, it is Friday. We haven't played the Nets just yet. But we got a lot to talk about. But we're going to be touching on that in later episodes, so stay tuned. We're going to be talking about Zion trades. We're going to be talking about DQ and Jeremiah Fears. We're going to be talking about them later on. Keep those are going to be coming out relatively quickly. But for now, there is a major issue that I think the NBA as a whole, not just the Pelicans, but the NBA as a whole is not noticing, or at the very least is not capitalizing on. Simply put, I think the league is getting too complex. And when I say too complex, I don't mean player-wise. I mean the NBA has overcomplicated what the NBA is supposed to be. And in turn, that overcomplication is what's causing a lot of these issues, or at the very least, it's not helping a lot of these issues that the NBA is facing. And a lot of the reason why there's a ton of fans that are just like, okay, what's the point in watching the sport anymore? We're going to watch it because it's still the best basketball being played, but it's a very poorly run organization. So let's get into that a little bit. But first, make sure you hit that subscribe, that like button, hit everything. Make sure to go check out the TikTok. I post daily content over there. We're talking a lot about other NBA teams. We're talking about the Chris Paul news. I will say it again. It is so bad what they did. That's just rough. You cannot do a Chris Paul, man. You can't do CP3 like that. But anyway, make sure you hit like, subscribe, all that stuff. Go check out the TikTok, the Nest RXP. Just make sure to go check it out. First things first, like I said, the league is just too complex. There's too many details within the rules that is kind of messing up what NBA fans are looking at. Okay, so brief overview. Humans are simple creatures. We really are. We don't like complex things. We may think we like complex things, and there may be people out there that's like, oh, I'm sophisticated. I like complex things. We don't. We're simple creatures. We like A to B. We don't like 1A, 2A, 3A, all the way to AB. No, we like A to B, B to C, C to D. Simple as that. That is what's best. That's what works. That is why the simplest organizations typically are the ones that do the best, because they're doing simple, straight to the point things. The NBA is not doing that. The NBA is overcomplicating everything in order to try and fix issues that they're seeing, but in turn, those fixes are creating bigger issues. So what's a good example of that? First things first, injuries. The injury concern has become a problem more as of late. And there's a million reasons why this is the case. The first reason is that the game is played at a much faster pace. It is a lot easier to get injured when you're going up and down the floor 200 times a game, rather than like the 100 or 150 at most that you're experiencing prior to 2010. It's very different. So that's going to lead to a lot more injuries, just naturally. But I also think a major issue is them overcomplicating what medical staff, rehabilitation staff, and training staff are supposed to be doing. On top of the fact that, in turn, that they are giving rest days. And I don't mean rest days like off days for games. I mean rest days where there's no practice, there's no workout, there is nothing. It is purely a day off for players. I don't think that is what's costing them these injuries. I'm going to give an example. If any of you have ever worked out, you know that if you go and you bench press 250, I don't know who's bench pressing 250. Actually, that's not too bad. But if you're bench pressing 250, if you're able to bench press 250, you've been doing it for like 3 weeks straight, and you're like, okay, I'm getting back up. You started at 200, now you're up at 250. Sick. You take a week off. You go on vacation. You take a week off, and you come back, and you try and bench press that 250 again. You're going to pull something. You're going to strain something. You're not going to be able to pull it. You're not going to be able to actually bench it. That's because muscles and muscle fibers, they are best when they are continuously being strained. If you continuously put some strain on them, they're going to get stronger over time, and they're actually going to be able to handle this speed, this constant change of speed and change of movement and things like that. They're going to be able to handle it a lot better. But because we're doing because a lot of teams are just basically having off days where like they don't do anything, they don't do any hard practice, nothing, That's empty gap space that's leading to guys like, okay, they're going from 100 to 0 back to 100, and that's what's causing these strains, particularly these calf strains, which have been tearing up the league as of like 15 players are out with a calf strain. A lot of them are mainly like stars or quality players. It's not just a bunch of bums. It's quality players that are actually out with calf strains right now. So I definitely think just simplifying that and just making like, okay, just work every day. Not just come in. You don't have to spend 6 hours a day. You don't have to be in the gym at 4 a.m. Shout out Kobe. You don't have to do all that. You just have to come in, do 2 hours of weight room, 3 hours on the court max. Just some movement just to get your body moving, and then you're good. Then you can take the rest of the day off. But you need that constant workout in order to be able to handle these games. If the practice is so hard, it's going to make the game super easy. The next thing that I really think the NBA should look back into is deflattening the lottery odds, because I think this has been a big issue for a lot of teams, because now that the odds are basically like anyone can get the number one pick, it really is sad. Anybody who is not in the playoffs could, in theory, be like just get the number one pick. They could have been just out of the play-in, just maybe like they lost one game in the play-in and now they're, I'm done. And then they get the number one overall pick. How is that fair? That screws every other team, particularly teams like the Utah Jazz, like the Sacramento Kings. These teams that they may be actively tanking, or they may actively be bad, but just with actual players, but they are caught in this stagnant position where they can't get better because the players they're getting are like fourth, fifth, sometimes even sixth picks despite being the worst team. So they're just getting meh players and meh prospects for what? It's just, and yeah, some of that is on general management, that some of that is on like, okay, they're just drafting poorly. That's fair. If you're a poor GM, you're a poor GM. You can't help that. But if you're out here and you're win 12 games in an entire season and then you drop down to fourth odds or the fifth pick or the sixth pick or something like that, that's an issue. That is a major issue. So what I was looking at is I tried to map it out the best I could. I didn't have enough time to map out every single odds of the pick, but I was able to map out a rough estimate as to how the picks and odds should look. Essentially, if you're the 30th seed, which is last seed in the entire NBA, you should have 30% odds to get the first pick. 29th should have 25%, and 28th should have 15%, and it just incrementally goes down. And I mapped it out. It's a little complicated how I mapped it out because it is much easier to show it than it is to tell you about it. But essentially, if you're the worst team, the lowest pick you can get is the 9th pick. But the only pick that you have less than 10% chance of getting is the 6th pick to the end. So you have essentially a 70, 80, 90% chance to get a top 5 pick, and a 50% chance of getting a top 2 pick, and then a 70% chance of getting a top 3 pick. That's the key. Keeping them within range. If you fall from 1st to 3rd, that's whatever. If you fall from 2nd to 3rd or 2nd to 4th, that's whatever. Keep it somewhat close. I'm tired of seeing teams that were the worst drop down to 5th and 6th and 7th. It's just so confusing. It's also so confusing for NBA fans to look at. Looking at draft odds is like, okay, so we were the 5th seed. For the 5th seed, we have a 15% chance of getting the first pick, but we have a 5% chance of getting the second pick? But then a 20% chance of getting the third pick? Wait, we're the 5th seed. Why do we have a 27% chance to get the 7th pick? Why does that make sense? The odds are all over the place, and they make no sense. We're humans. Keep it simple. Just make it easy for fans, NBA fans, to understand, and then it'll all work out. And it'll allow teams to actually be better long term. Because you're gonna allow teams to properly rebuild. And I know the NBA is rigged. It's not really like, I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna get flack for saying this. The NBA is absolutely manipulating everything they can in order to make it a good story. That's just what good sports organizations do. They're not manipulating games necessarily, but they are manipulating the odds. They are manipulating the schedule so that better teams get easier schedules and things like that, so that they can see these players. Whatever. They've been doing it for years. They're going to continue to do it. We can't stop that. but you can be aware of it. And I don't know if they're going to do this just because odds are just one thing that they manipulate like that, but that's something as a fan that I would love to see. The next thing that the NBA really needs to focus on, and this is something that they're definitely not going to fix because they just signed a new TV deal, but the viewability of the games. And I mean this in two parts. The first part is just where to watch the damn games. It is so confusing. That's been the meme of the summer since the NBA announced the whole weekly viewership schedule where it's like Peacock and all this stuff. It's crazy. I don't understand it. I just watch the Pelicans and I just use Pelicans Plus. That's what I do. Simple as that. That's simple, relatively. But the rest of the NBA watching these games, it is so complicated, and I just don't have time to map it out and figure out like, okay, how much do I need to pay for this. I don't have time for that. I don't got money for that. I don't care about that. But just finding out a way to keep it simpler. And there's a million ways you can do it. What I would do, just have it all be part of an NBA subscription plan or something like that. Have cable be its own thing. But when it comes to like fans, they want to spend $10. They get all of one NBA team's games of their choice, $10 a month. If they spend $5 more, they get some limited national televised games. If they get $20, if they pay for $20, they can get, or like you can have $5 more and you can add more teams to it. And then it can get to the point where you can just get like the total league pass, which is like the $200 one. That's kind of just basically ultimate league pass and things like that. I think keeping it simple with that would be huge, but it's so tricky. It's so tricky, especially with television deals and things like that. And they just signed a new one, so it's going to be stuck like this for years. But the league really needs to look at just keeping things simple and simplifying everything. Just listen to the fans. Be simple. The second part of viewability that I really want to touch on is just the actual entertainment value of each game. Not every game is going to have like a ton of talent in it or things like that. Like obviously the OKC Thunder versus the LA Lakers is going to be a much funner game to watch than like I'm going to diss my own Pelicans, the Pelicans and the Mavericks. Like, it's just two very different quality of teams. And yeah, you're watching young prospects on this side. And so, like, if those who are, like, NBA nerds are like, ooh, we could see young prospects, we could see the future, that's cool. But this is, like, going to be an objectively better game. That shouldn't be the case. You should be able to watch these games and have some enjoyment watching them either way. And I think there's an easy way to do that. You just got to call and officiate the game like it's a playoff game every single night. It is not that hard. The reason NBA games are so hard to watch, at least for me, this is my opinion, the reason NBA games are so hard to watch is because officiating is so confusing and it is so inconsistent and it is so just bad, because there's some nights where a touch is a foul, there's other nights where you can smack someone and it's not a foul. There needs to be consistency, and there needs to be they need to allow some physicality. Because it also speeds up the game. It also speeds up the game and allows players to play faster. And yeah, it may lead to more injuries. I highly doubt it will. But it will allow players to play through and actually show their skills. And it will kind of stop this whole just chucking threes every single night. Like that whole trend, the Celtics trend as I call it. It's going to be able to stop that and slow that down and allow players and allow teams to actually play like good looking basketball. But again, just my opinion. The next thing that the NBA really is like struggling with lately has been the All-Star game and just viewership with it and all this stuff. And I think there is a fun way to fix the All-Star game and also tie it into my second issue, the in-season tournament. Now, the in-season tournament I actually think is a good idea. I like what it's been doing. I like that it's causing some competitiveness. It's given some entertainment value to the mid-season. I also think if you just made the games entertaining, like I said prior, you wouldn't need the in-season tournament, but I digress. It's still a fun concept, and I think if you mess around with the All-Star and in-season tournament, it can actually benefit each other and do really good things. So first off, in-season tournament. Actually, no, let's start with the All-Star game. Let's start with the All-Star game. All-Star game, I think there's an easy way to make it competitive, and we see it with the in-season tournament. Just put money on the line. Simple as that. Not money for charities, not money for randoms. No offense, anybody who's in a charity and needs the money. Money for the players. Take the money. So in the in-season tournament, each player on the winning team gets $500,000. and second place gets $700,000. If you told each player, or second place gets 200, it combines to 700. That's what I mean. If you tell NBA players that, okay, the winning all-star team gets $7,500 or $750,000 each, they will compete. They will go out there and compete, and they will try and win. Especially if you tell them, like, oh, second place or the losing team gets nothing, or they get like $50,000 or $100,000, something simple like that. It will make them compete. It'll make them actually want to go out there and play and win hard. And it'll allow you to actually have like a fun little pickup game. And I think and you may be like, where's that money going to come from? Are they going to donate it? We can't just pull it out of our paychecks. Simple. Take it out of the in-season tournament winnings. Take it out. All that money, the several millions of dollars that you're going to be wasting, actually it's going to be like 10 million plus, that you're going to be wasting on that in-season tournament, take it, put it towards the All-Star Game rewards, and simply switch it up so that the in-season tournament has a better value. I think the in-season tournament's reward should be guaranteed home court advantage if you win. And it's simple. It's not too hard. It's the simplest solution, because you can't guarantee a playoff spot because that's too confusing to try and figure out. But it is easier to just guarantee that no matter what, you're going to start with home court advantage. And it goes simple as this. Say, okay, so I'm trying to think. So the Raptors right now, let's say the Raptors with Brandon Ingram and the, I guess, OKC Thunder. Yeah, we'll say OKC Thunder and Raptors are in the in-season tournament championship, and then the Raptors win for some reason. They're not going to beat the Thunder like that, but whatever. Raptors win. That means that regardless of where the Raps are seated, whether it's first seed, fourth seed, or ninth seed in the play-in tournament, the first game in every series, they get home court advantage. And if they're in the play-in, they get home court advantage for all, whether it's one game or two games. They get home court advantage for all those games. That's huge for teams, and they're going to actually want to fight for that. And here's the thing. If you're one of those teams that's like, okay, we're not going to be in the playoffs anyway, why would we fight for home court advantage? You're not going to be in the playoffs anyway, so you're probably not going to be competing in the in-season tournament. If you're not good, you're not going to compete in any tournaments. You're just kind of there. You can't really do anything about that, sadly. But you can still have fun. And, hey, a lot of teams are going to be like, okay, maybe we're going to try to make a run. So they're going to try and make a run now for that award and trying to get that guaranteed home court advantage, hoping that they can make the play-in or the playoffs and things like that. I think that's a much better incentive and reward compared to these other teams. And it may be a giant middle finger to teams that are like the 8th seed. Like, say the 8th seed wins the in-season tournament, and then they're coming into the NBA playoffs, and they're facing the first seed, and now the 8th seed gets home court advantage over the first seed. I think that, yeah, that's a massive issue, but it also puts more incentive on these winning teams to actually fight early in the season and win these in-season tournament games so that you don't have to worry about that. Just a thought. And I think that would be a nice little way to get the All-Star game to be competitive, and a way to get in-season tournament to continue to stay competitive. But all in all, the NBA just needs to simplify everything. If they simplify it, it'll make the game a lot easier. It'll make the game a lot easier to watch. It'll make the NBA a lot easier and more fun to watch. And I think they should look into it. But I digress. I don't think any of these changes are going to be made. I'm a nobody. They're not going to listen to me. I'm obviously not in front office or anything, so they're not going to give a damn what I say. But these are things that, like, I think fans should really start preaching and try and see if we can get the message to the NBA and get it to Adam Silver and get it to these folks so that changes can be made. And regardless if these exact changes are made, these concepts of ideas I think would be very beneficial for the league as a whole. But we can only see with time, effort, and hopefully by voicing ourselves. But that's all I got for today. But thank you all so much for watching. Again, make sure you go check out the TikTok and the Instagram page. I post a lot more over there. Make sure to stay tuned. We're going to be talking about Zion trades. We're going to be talking about Jeremiah and Queen and building around them. But again, stay tuned. And until then, peace.